Hello, wonderful friends. Welcome to another live write. We're going to see how this goes today, but I decided that I'm going to put a tiny post-it note over the number of viewers because that freaked me out last time. So yesterday, or 2 days ago, rather, if you tuned in, oh, my Iron Giant just fell down. Do you want to see what I'm talking about? Isn't he the best? Iron Giant is my favorite animated film, and I love it because the Hogarth tells the Iron Giant, who's like predisposed to be one thing, that you are who you choose to be, which I also have on a piece of art in the background that you can't see because right now my file is blocking it. So I just wanted to come in and work on some writing today before I even start client work. I normally am doing my best writing in the morning. If my son comes in, it's because he stayed home from school sick. He's not feeling well today. But I wanted to, we talked about, I shared a story that was how I had been misunderstood when I was growing up and I had a learning difficulty. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reframe that. I'm going to show how something that could have been very difficult and character wrecking turned into what is now my professional superpower. So I'm going to go ahead and write. If you leave a question and come back at 9:10, I will go ahead and answer those until 9:20. I am EST, so that gives you an idea. See you. Oh, O2 Francis says, hello, good morning, O2. How are you doing today? All right, so let me go ahead and get into the zone. All right, actually, I wrote this before I hopped on here because I was like, I have this thought. It's the continuation of the previous thought. Let me get it down, so I'm going to read it for you. Looking back, I can see now that every time my brain failed me when it came to numbers, I turned to words. My friends would explain concepts to me that I didn't understand using analogies, metaphors, and stories. Reframing difficult concepts into new ones I could process more easily was a huge help. And not only that, but the critiques I faced through the years helped shape my awareness that I wasn't learning like most of my classmates. Now, because of the way I had to adjust so I could get through school with my learning difficulty, I can use words in ways that most people never even think to. What do I mean by that? All right, here we go. see, how did I do this? I'm sure I did it in Upstyle. Yep. See how all the words are capitalized. So my particular brand of Upstyle is I like to do, and actually I'm going to change this now. I like to do any word that's not a preposition and prepositions that are 4 letters and over. So that would be in the style guide for my editors that work in literary symmetry. That's how we do it. How it's going. So I told you I might not use these how it started, how it's going in the actual book. I might come up with something a little bit more clever or cheeky. But this is just for me to use as a point of reference because these are the things that need to go in chapter 1. And like I said, chapter 1 is the most important chapter. If you do not get chapter 1 right, you are going to be in trouble with the reader. And I actually have notes on my phone that I talked about last time because I was just reading this weekend and thinking, and now I have those notes from my past self. And I love notes from my past self because she's so nice to future me. I love how thoughtful she is about what I'm doing and how she supports me by giving me wisdom that she's thought of in a way that I can still access later because I forget. I wouldn't remember these things without taking notes. And some people can remember everything. I'm not one of those people. I also cannot, like, I know multitasking isn't real, but I am the worst multitasker. I have to focus on one thing at a time. And if you're curious as to what I'm listening to, music wise, I always listen to instrumental music when I'm writing because if there are lyrics, if there are words in the music, it trips me up. I've tested with music, with lyrics, with no music, and instrumental music without lyrics. And I write the fastest with instrumental music without lyrics. So one of the things that you can learn about yourself as a professional is how do I perform at my best? So I'm at the right time of day. I have my instrumental music. I have my notes from my past self. It's a good day for writing, friends. Okay, how it's going. I don't know this is. I'm just going to fix this. Hmm. So what I'm trying to do here is give context for how I entered the writing world without getting nostalgic. And nostalgia is probably one of the most difficult things for writers because you're adding details that feel important to you, but that your reader doesn't care about. And so you're going to lose the reader. And you're like, well, why don't they care about those details? Because the way that you remember them as part of your lived life doesn't translate, no matter how hard you try, it doesn't translate into meaningful details to the reader unless there's like, I need to tell them about this yellow yo-yo because I would find it 50 years later and it would inspire me to start my business. Like, right? Like if there is an end game to sharing that detail, then you can do it. But you don't need to talk about the way that it felt in your hand. Like you don't need to go hyper focused on those details. And nostalgia really tempts us to do that. I've done it. I had to work myself out of that and learn not to do it. And for most of the business nonfiction authors that I work with, we have to take stuff out. Like they'll be like, I really want these details, and then they go in because I'm always going to put the details you want in the book. And then when I read it, I'm like, is this serving the reader? And then they'll see it and they'll be like, no, it doesn't seem like it is. I'm like, okay, so is it all right now if we take it out? And I would always rather do that than like feel like I need to pressure someone to not put something in. We can always take it out. It's just, a few more minutes of my time, but I want that really customized, supportive environment for us to work in. So that's why I do it that way. And I had to learn to do it that way because I would be like, no, you listen to me. And that, that did not work. Because when you're dealing with someone's story, you have to be gentle. Just like right now, I'm dealing with my own story. I'm being really gentle with myself. All right, back to writing. We don't start sentences with numerals, in case you're wondering why I just did that. And actually, I should be typing out 10 according to my own number rules that I have for my staff. 10 years after moving to Europe and about, I don't know, I think I had written 9 books later. We came back. I'm trying to balance this with like telling just the right amount of information, but not making it too long. So my brain is like running all these formulas in the background. I'm like, okay, we need to do this, 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 right? Like I'm thinking of the different sales psychology I need to have under this layer of storytelling and what thing is really important for the reader of this so that they feel connected to me, but they understand why I'm so good at what I do and what my qualifications are. And women have this extra layer of that where we're thinking about, do I sound too braggy? Because if I sound too confident, I'll be considered arrogant, which men don't have that same problem that they have to filter everything through. So it's just one of those interesting added layers. And that's the thing is you see me typing, but what you can't see is that I'm stacking these word formulas on top of each other in a way that I'm not good at multitasking. I said that earlier. My writing is really good at it. I know how to put words together using these different methods. So that's what actually I'm trying to write about right now. So I could adjust. Also, when I write about my kids, I don't ever use their names in print. And I also don't write anything that's their story to tell. So you can like, I'm being super vague. Like, I'm not going to go into the details of what they experienced because that's their story. This is my story. If they want to tell their story later, cool. But I'm not going to take away their agency by doing that for them. I'm not going to do that again because I just did it. See, to say, whoop. That's called self-editing, and generally you're not supposed to do it in a first draft. But my first drafts are, I write all the time. So my first drafts, I allow myself to do a tiny bit of self-editing, okay? Like I said, I have to be gracious with myself. And this is a first draft of someone who has spent 15 years writing every day, almost every day. This is not what your first draft is going to look like if you're writing. Okay. So please don't compare your work to my work. Compare your work to your past work. I'll compare my work to my past work. But one of the reasons that I'm sharing that is I know some of you are writing for your business. And whether or not you hire me as a ghostwriter, I want you to know that if you are not a professional writer, this is not what your first draft is going to look like because you're not a professional writer. And that's okay. Like, you need to be merciful and gracious with yourself, right? Gentle with yourself. Also, I used an exclamation point. Let me just talk about that for a minute. So there's my editor and I have this very spoken, it's not an unspoken rule, that I get one exclamation point per project. And in a book, I have to use it really well. So I don't know if this will stay an exclamation point when it comes to let's decide which one we're going to keep in. The reason is that readers of nonfiction in general view using exclamation points as a weakness. It has to do with the prescriptivist standpoint of writing, where you should use your words to show your emotion, not punctuation. But we have the exclamation point or exclamation mark, right? Depending if you're British or from the US. So why can't we use it? So my descriptivist side is like, okay, we're going to use it. We're just going to use it, moderately. Like, we're going to limit how often we use it. So these are all decisions that I'm making based on the knowledge that I have. But we'll see. I did give birth to 3 humans. I feel like that deserves an exclamation point. We'll see if it ends up staying in the final draft when we compare which exclamation point we want to keep. And maybe I'll keep 2. Maybe I'll really live large and keep 3. We'll see. I almost did the to say again. Something on my desk is rattling when I'm typing. It's bothering me. Let me try to not have things touch each other. Oh, that worked. Nice. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail this class and get kicked out of this program. He didn't believe me. I did that every class. I was like, I'm going to fail. It felt so big and difficult. That looks too small. Is that an M dash in this font? No? Yeah. There are 3 different kinds of dashes, by the way: an N dash, an M dash, and a dash dash. Here you can see I have used a traditional dash to join these because these 3 words together are modifying this word, mechanics. So they need to be joined by a dash. It's not that I love dashes to death. It's that we need this grammatically. This is an M dash, and it can be used like a comma to offset a thought for oh gosh. What are the words? Sometimes I forget these words. Let me just look it up. Okay, so this you can use for setting off a non-restrictive clause, which, by the way, when I looked it up, the answer did not come. I just remembered it. Okay, that serve the big C. Actually, you know what I could use here? I could use a colon. And in general, I just tell my clients, don't use semicolons. They're very difficult to understand when you should and shouldn't use them. The big rule for that is that semicolons have to have complete sentences on both sides if they're not being used in a list, which there's a whole nother. See, these are all the things I learned in the copy editing program. And we don't use a colon with for example. Also, by the way, the 4 C's are, and I have them on a post-it note on my computer because I use them every single day. Clarity, concision, consistency, and correctness. And you can see there that I used an Oxford comma. I'm an Oxford comma person because let's eat, comma, grandma is different than let's eat grandma. Just kidding, that's not an Oxford comma, but that's a really fun example of why commas are awesome. There have been law cases over Oxford commas when we studied that in my copy editing certificate program as well. So it's just better to use an Oxford comma, in my opinion. If you work with me, I'm going to use an Oxford comma. Clarity. And then I actually am going to make myself a note, insert footnote, because I don't want to lose my momentum. And I know exactly which book this is in. It's on my shelf up there, but I'm not going to do this at that moment. Because you always want to give credit. If you didn't come up with the idea yourself, or even if sometimes we think that we came up with an idea and we actually read it somewhere. There's a whole name for that. But if you know, okay, I got this out of this book or I got this out of this article, always just cite it. And also, you cannot take quotes out of other people's books without written permission, even if it's just like 3 or 4 words. There's no actual rule about how many words constitutes a copyright claim. Another thing I learned in my copy editing certificate program. Okay, now I'm totally off track. Let's go back. In total transparency, a lot of things that make me such an effective writer and were things that should be E. And you saw me switch back and forth. That's still something I struggle with. And sometimes it's the second read through that I finally am like, which one is this? And that's why you have to have supportive people around you too. Like, I know I have certain weaknesses that no matter how hard I try, I'm going to mess them up. And my copy editor will be like, why do you keep making this thing over and over? I'm like, I just can't stop doing it. That's why I have you. I trust you to fix it. A lot of the things that make me such an effective writer. There's a tense discrepancy in this sentence. Should I sometimes the best thing to do is recast it. I'm going to recast it. Instead of finagling it, it takes twice as long or 3 times as long to finagle it. Recasting goes much faster. If you see a sentence that's confusing and you know that it needs to be rewritten, recast it, which is a fancy editing term for rewriting it, instead of sitting there and editing it itself. Like, it's just much faster. And see, it actually changed quite a bit because now I know what I want to say. And this is vague language. And because it's a specific type of program. I don't know. We'll see what Maria says about that. with proper noun capitalization and that kind of fun. And I am going to put in, because this is a restrictive clause here, and that works better. I was trying to avoid having those 4 C's twice. If I was writing without doing the live writing, by the way, it would be much faster because I wouldn't be adding all of these notes for you because I know them myself. I don't need to clarify them for myself. It's telling me that's one word. Let's see. I'm going to look it up in Merriam-Webster's and report back to you. Yep, according to Merriam-Webster's. All right, collegiate, we're going to leave it. Their online is very close to their collegiate dictionary, just for your point of reference. Okay. Okay, I feel like I can't do any more backstory. I don't know if that should be capital or not. Autocorrect did me dirty. Okay. Nope, that's wrong. And I would go through and name check that in a second draft. And I just use the colon there. See, it creates emphasis. Like I'm using for all 4 different sentence structures, I am using varied vocabulary. I'm using different punctuation methods, right? Like you can see I used these em dashes to offset the non-restrictive clause, and later on I will use commas. Like why we do that, just if you're interested, I'm going to actually make that a new paragraph. If you're interested in why we make sure that everything is different, it's so that your brain will process it as new information. If we use the same words, the same sentence structures, the same illustrations even, what's going to happen is your brain just sort of skips over them. And when we're trying to teach someone something, which is what business nonfiction books do, then we need to make sure we're presenting the information in a way that your brain will say, this is new information and I need to process this in the new information part, which means that I'm actually going to pay much more attention to what they're saying here. So all of the things that we're doing in the background is to increase the reader experience to help set them up to win. Sidetrack. Who had read Don't tell Maria how long it took me to type her last name. Actually, there's a way that I'm supposed to introduce this, but it's my own book, so I can mess with it a little bit. And I don't remember what the subtitle is, so I'm going to grab the copy of it that I have here, which I don't promote this book anymore because it doesn't do what we thought it was going to do, because we don't want to work primarily with people who are learning to write. Do you see how specific that subtitle is? I've been trying to make them shorter, but the specificity helps a lot. Some of them. Actually, See, I used an M dash there instead of a colon. Nope. Remember when I said there's already enough backstory? Depending on what I want to do, I can adjust any story to fit. I can choose which details I put in. A ghost was born. I would put an exclamation point there, except I know I already used one and it was a better use of it. That was a comma splice. Good catch, word. That shouldn't be a comma. You just undid it. Like you did something cool and then you undid it. I'm not going to mention which ghostwriting firms because I don't want to get in trouble with them. They have a lot of money and they could sue the crap out of me. How many words are we? So, like for me, I don't want to have a chapter 1 that's more than 6,000 words. 6,000 words is a good, if you're going to split up a chapter with section headings, which that's the way that I recommend doing it, and that's the way I do it, then you can get away with longer chapters like 6,000 words. Anything over that, though, feels like why isn't this split up into more chapters? So I like to keep my chapters between 2,500 and 6,000 words. But chapter ones are really long. Chapter ones are always the longest. Well, there might be like one really long chapter somewhere in the middle of the book as well, depending on the concept that we're working through. But chapter ones, they have a lot to do. They're doing so much heavy lifting. So that's why I found that around 6,000 words is usually sufficient to do all that lifting. And that's why when people submit chapter ones to me, they get them back and they're torn apart. And I'm going to show you actually why that happens and what I'm doing when I'm changing it. And I'm going to use AI to write a chapter and then I'm just going to rip it to shreds because I didn't want to do that in this book on this live stream for an actual person because that would be so disheartening. It's disheartening for me when I get my, even though I have been doing this a long time, it's still disheartening for me when I get my edits back because I have that perfectionistic tendency that I'm trying to kill every day inside of me. I'm just like, no, I don't need to be perfect. I need to show up imperfectly. I need to do things afraid. And so I didn't want to do that to someone. Even if someone was like, I'll let you rewrite chapter 1 for me in exchange for you publishing it, that's $5,000 value, but it's too hard. I wouldn't want to do it. So I'm going to have AI do that. That was an idea that I came up with as a workaround. And one of the best things that I love about this book writing is you get to be creative. You get to think of things that previous you wouldn't have thought of because you're growing every day by pushing yourself to do something that's really hard. And these projects are like that. Even if you're not the one writing the book, even if you're the ghost, you learn so much about yourself and how you are capable of so many things that you hadn't imagined because you look back and you see, I did all these things. I did this. That means I can do more scary things. That means I can try other things that I used to think that would be impossible for me, or I can hire someone to help me do this. So it's that focused creativity, I would say. And we're gonna, because that's gonna come up again for sure. I don't know if I'm gonna leave jazzed up. We get all jazzed up and excited about what they had learned in the book. But then there was no way for them to work with the I don't care what anyone else says. No one wants to read a sales letter that is 35,000 words long, no matter how much sales psychology you pack into it. At some point, I'm going to explain that I call all of the people that I work with authors, even though I'm the one doing the writing, because without their stories, the book wouldn't exist. So they're the author. They're still the author. I'm the ghostwriter. Okay, this seems like, let me just read this. I'm at the really good part of the song right now with the horns, by the way. All right, I don't know if I feel like there's maybe something else I'm missing in this section, but I can't quite put my finger on it, so I'm going to move to the next section. This is the promise of the book. I'll probably come back, like I said. It's a preposition under 4 letters. And I'll probably come back and change these subtitles, the section headings, but it's just for my point of reference, what I'm promising you in this book. So what I just did there, I shouldn't even be telling you this, but whatever, it's fine. I am teaching them how to talk to me because I want them to be able to talk to me. If we get on a call, I already want them to have practiced in their head that they're using my name, that they're talking to me. This is something I do in speeches. It's a method that I learned from Pat Quinn, who is an adult education expert. And you should do it in your books. You should do it in your copy. Get people to visualize speaking to you, and that will take away the barrier of them thinking that they can't speak to you. I totally understand. It takes so many years to learn how to be able to do everything that I already do in every single one of the books I write. And if you don't actually want to be a career writer, then it doesn't make sense for you to invest so much time in learning the skills you would need to create a compelling and action-driving book. I'm future casting there. I don't have any other writers on my team yet. I am in the mental process of developing a ghostwriting school because I'm the only one who combines these three approaches into the books that I ghostwrite. So I need to train the even ghostwriters who are like, I've written all these books. They're not using all of the methods that I use. So I would have to train them. So that's like a big picture 5-year goal, is to have a ghostwriting school that I can send people through so I can add them to my staff. They can audition after that to be on my staff, or they can start their own ghostwriting business with the education that they've gotten from me. I've used behind the scenes twice now, so I want to use something else. For every piece of writing I complete. A lot of writing is just staring at your screen like this. I say totally because I'm from Southern California. Did I already decide? Did I already look up tool belt? I can't remember. Nope, not one word. Okay, cool. My instincts were correct. If you read this and decide you stop. I didn't do a good job of this part. So I'm going to do this. Once again, I probably will come back and change that. You can see that here, and this is so important. This is one of the most important things. I'm already telling them, look, this is a tool, a strategic tool I'm using for my business. And what this broadcasts to them is, I am going to make you an offer at the end of this. I will 100% offer for you to work with me. If you don't want to work with me, though, look, I have that here too. If you don't want to hire me, if you just want to use this book as a tool that you can model your own book after, I'm okay with that. The results that you get are not going to be as good. I'm not going to write that in here. I'll talk about that later in the book, that the results you get will not be as good, but I'm not upset. I'm not upset. I'm for you. I'm always for you. And if you feel like this is something I need to do myself, I actually have recommendations of people that you can work with so that you're not doing it alone. My favorite person to recommend for this is Melody Owen, who has cohorts where they're all writing together, which is so important because writing can feel really lonely. For me, I'm introverted. I sort of like the aloneness of it now at this point in my career. But when I was first starting, I did like having that ongoing support. And now, I don't submit my books to groups anymore. There are a few strategic people who I want to look through my books. So, but if you're on a journey, right? And I'm going to make recommendations, but I want them to understand this is my business tool. So I'm not going to be shy about the fact that I offer these services. That way they don't feel betrayed at the end, because that's normally what happens is people write this long book and then they're like, hey, do you want help with this? Buy this now. And people are like, what? They're selling services and you can go. I challenge you. Go on Amazon and look at the reviews of different books that are promoting services. I'm trying to think. There are several like really stark examples where the reviews are almost all like, this book was fine, and then at the end they betray, like, this is just a long sales letter, right? So I can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe I'll do some research for that. But I challenge you, go look at some of the really big business books that are offering services in them and see what the reviews say. You're either going to see, oh, this was amazing, I love this, for people who are already sort of true believers in that person. Or you're going to see like, this is one long sales pitch and I feel betrayed. So the way to avoid that, though, is to build the fact that you're going to make an offer into the first chapter, and then to make small reminders and subtle offers throughout the book, which is one of the things I'm doing. It's one of the layers. That's part of the sales psychology layer that we're doing in the book. All right. The second group. And what I want them to do in this is I'm asking them to self-identify as part of my unique purchasers. I like unique purchasers instead of ideal client avatar. I'm outphasing the use of ideal client avatars in my work, for my clients and in my business, because they do not take into consideration under-recognized groups, and that's a bummer. And I don't want to promote that. So I've been building a system behind the scenes, and I've actually been talking to another branding expert about this so that we can be more inclusive. And also, when we are only targeting an ideal client avatar, that was built so that marketing people would have easier jobs. I'm not interested in having an easier job. I'm interested in getting better results for my clients, which means I need to be open to helping them serve people that maybe no one else is interested in helping to serve. Because that means that all these other people who are like, well, I don't really care about going outside of my ideal client avatar, they're leaving so much money on the table. And this is actually part of the corporate program that I'm developing right now that I need to work on after this video. All right. So I'm having them self-identify. No matter which group. I don't even know now what I was going to say. The second group. See, this is not. That's why we need human editors still. I'm going to add a so here. I'm at the horn section again. I just listen to the same song on repeat. It just helps my brain. I'm pretty, like, I've heard that's an ADHD thing. I definitely have some ADHD tendencies. And I have a child who is on the autism spectrum with ADHD and a general anxiety disorder. So, maybe it's hereditary. I don't know. But my husband can't stand it. He's like, how can you listen to the same song on repeat all day? I'm like, I don't know. It like helps me think, but it doesn't distract me with the awesomeness of the music if it's the same song. There's a whole thing about contractions I could go into. I'm not going to go into it right now. But yes, you can use contractions in a book where you're trying to sound professional, because what's the most important thing? What's one of the biggest goals of any business nonfiction book? It's to create a point of human connection. And if you sound overly formal instead of conversational, they aren't going to feel that they can relate to you, and they aren't going to feel that they are able to work with you. That's a $10,000 nugget I just threw at you right there. I'm going to add a paragraph here about the offer first method, because that's been missing, and I've been like, where can I fit it? I think I can fit it here. My son is coming down. I can hear him. Now I use those same. I'm recording live, just letting you know. It's okay. What do you need?
The medicine worked really, really well.
Oh, good.
I feel much better.
Okay. Did you go back to sleep?
Mm-hmm. Can I go to school still?
No, it's too late. School already started, and I don't have a car to drive you there.
Okay.
Because Ksana's car's still in the shop.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, love
you.
I'm gonna get breakfast because I'm actually really hungry.
Okay, well, that's a good sign. Can you close the door all the way, please?
Love you.
Thanks. Love you. I'm thinking about a transitional sentence, if you're wondering what I'm thinking about. I'm going to change this to plus. I'm going to take that out. I feel like that's self-limiting language. Okay, so there's chapter 1. Ooh, it's always nice when you finish a chapter, even if it's the first draft. My alarms all just went off there. It's like, it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. I'm like, yes. My husband is dry brining a turkey as we speak. So it ended up being 4,293 words, which is a respectable length for chapter 1. If I can get like 6,000 is the max. If I like I said, if I can get it under that, that's great. And my one of my things is the books that I write for my clients are shorter than the other ghostwriting firms do, because I know that for the genre of self-help, which is where business nonfiction books fit, that reader fatigue usually sets in around 35,000 words. So I want to I want to be concise, right? I want to be clear and put everything they need in those 35,000 words if I can. And because I am also an editor, I can I can do more with fewer words. Oh, I like that. I'm going to write that down. And it's fewer because words are a count noun. If you don't know what a count noun or non-count noun is, you could look it up and it will tell you when to use less and when to use fewer. All right. So actually what I'm going to do, because I have 9 minutes left before I am answering questions, is I'm going to insert a page break there. And let's see, how did I format this? 16. All right. I want to stay consistent. It's just my brain does better. Chapter 2. What is chapter 2 called? I mean, what is chapter 2 about? So what I have is why hire a ghostwriter. Normally I would be something like, should I hire a ghostwriter? The word should has been sort of banned from our language, which is sad because it's a meaningful word, but people were using it to impose their will on others, so I get the resistance to it. But I wish we could bring it back without it being a pushy word. I'm going to change that to 16. And then maybe I'll write the first line or two. When you're writing and you stop at a place where you can easily pick up, it's much more helpful. Like if I stop in chapter 1, because I just finished that, then coming back and being like, oh, the blank page syndrome. It can happen every chapter. So I like to at least get a couple of lines in if I have the time. Also, I'm inserting humor. Even if you don't get a laugh, humor creates a whole nother level of trust with the people who you're working with. If you're curious about this, Humor Seriously is an amazing resource. It did not make me laugh out loud one time. I keep track of when I cry and when I laugh out loud when I'm reading books, because that's how big of a nerd I am. And it did not make me laugh out loud one single time, but the attempts at humor did make me feel more likely to trust the author. So I was like, okay, I'm going to tell bad jokes in books now. And that's what I do. And I help my clients, my ghostwriting clients, come up with funny things we could say in the book. The only thing I would say you need to be careful of when you're trying to add humor is sarcasm. Sarcasm doesn't really translate that well in emails, text, or books. My friend RP always jokes that we should have a sarcasm font because he's a very sarcastic person. And maybe that is true, but as of right now, we don't have a clear, efficient way to communicate sarcasm. So if you don't want to come off as sounding snarky or being confusing, it's probably best not to use sarcasm in your writing. Oh, that is a semicolon. Good catchword. Because this is a complete sentence and it's related to this. Boom. Okay, that's a really good place for me to stop. So I'm going to stop a minute early and I'm going to head to the comments section here. Oh, okay. So I have some comments from O2 who says he's doing good there in Ghana. Amazing. Ghana is a really cool country. And then I have a good morning from my SEO expert friend, Desiree Grimaldi, who is doing really exciting things for the end of the year for Q4. If your business needs help with SEO, I would recommend her highly. She's the one who helped me set up my Google business page. She's the one who taught me how to incorporate SEO into my writing. I actually worked with her so that I could use that knowledge to help my clients better when I'm working on their web copy. So this has been an hour and 40 minutes of writing live with me. I appreciate everyone who stopped in, and I hope that you can see that we all need help. I need help. If you want to write a book, you probably need help. And it's okay to find that expert help, the person who's going to take you to that next level. And I also want to let you know that you are amazing. I believe in you and your business story matters. Watch for more of these as we work more on chapter 2, and I will talk to you